The night was quiet in the small village, a silence so deep that even the crickets seemed afraid to sing. A soft wind moved through the fields, carrying the smell of earth and rain. Children slept in their beds, unaware of the danger coming from the sky. But one man could feel it. Something wrong, something heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. High above, hidden beyond the clouds, a dark shape drifted silently. It was no airplane. It was no satellite. It was a ship, alien, massive and cold. Its surface shimmered like black glass, and strange lights pulsed along its edges. The creatures inside watched the village below, their glowing eyes filled with a cruel purpose. Tonight, they would erase this place. Not conquer. Not enslave. Erase. Wipe it from the face of the earth as if it had never existed. Down in the village, an old radio crackled inside the small home of Thomas Grady. He was a farmer, but he had once been a soldier. He had spent years learning how to read the signs of danger, the tiny things most people never noticed. And tonight, every instinct screamed at him. The animals had gone silent hours ago. The electricity flickered twice, then steadied. And now the radio, old and dusty, whispered with a faint signal. A voice, broken and weak, was repeating the same words. This is not a drill. Unknown objects entering atmosphere. Possible hostile intent. Thomas froze. His heart hammered in his chest. He turned the volume higher, but the signal faded to static. He tried again, but the voice was gone. Outside, the wind died completely. Miles above, the alien ship opened. A soft hum filled the night as small dark pods detached and began falling, silent, fast, and invisible to any radar. Each pod carried something not of this world. Something designed to destroy. Thomas stepped out of his home and scanned the sky. At first, there was nothing. Then he saw it, a faint shimmer, like heat rising from the horizon. It was moving, growing larger. His first thought was to warn the others. But how could he? There was no time, no proof, only a feeling, and the fading echo of that radio call. A pod landed in the field beyond the village with no sound, no flash, no smoke. It simply appeared, like a shadow dropped from the stars. The soil beneath it burned faintly, glowing red. Thomas ran toward it, fear gripping his throat. As he approached, the pod hissed, and a crack appeared across its surface. Something was coming out. The creature that emerged stood taller than any man. Its skin was metallic and alive, shifting like liquid armor. Its head was smooth, without a mouth, only two burning slits where eyes should be. It moved with precision, too calm, too sure. This was not its first time. Thomas crouched behind a broken fence, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The creature scanned the field, a faint blue light sweeping from its eyes. When it faced the village, the light grew brighter. Then it spoke, not with words, but a soundless vibration that rattled Thomas's bones. More pods fell. One by one, more creatures emerged. They formed a perfect line, staring toward the village like hunters about to close a trap. Thomas ran. He didn't care if they saw him now. He had to warn the others. The ground shook beneath his feet as more pods landed, closer and closer. He stumbled into the main road, shouting, pounding on doors. Wake up! Everyone wake up! They're here! Lights flickered on in windows. Confused faces appeared in doorways. Fear began to spread, fast and sharp. Then came the sound. A low hum that rose into a deep, vibrating tone, rolling across the land like thunder. The alien ship had moved lower, and its underbelly now glowed with a strange light, an eerie, colorless radiance that painted the fields white. And then, silence again. The villagers stood frozen. Children clutched their parents. Old men whispered prayers. The ship was so massive it blotted out the stars above. Thomas stood in the middle of the road, chest heaving, fists clenched. He could feel the weight of their eyes on him, his neighbors, his friends, waiting for someone to say what to do. But before a word could be spoken, the first creature stepped into the village. Its footsteps made no sound, yet the ground trembled with each one. Behind it, others followed. A perfect line of alien soldiers, advancing with slow, deliberate precision. The hum returned, louder now, deep enough to shake the glass in the windows. Then the light from the ship above began to pulse. Slowly at first, then faster, faster, until the whole village was bathed in a ghostly rhythm. One step closer. One pulse brighter. 1 second from the end. And then, Thomas whispered, barely a breath, but enough for those nearest to hear. They're not here to talk. They're here to erase us. Darkness swallowed the village as the light above suddenly died. Darkness swallowed the village. Not a single lamp, not a single star, not even the moon gave light. The ship above had taken it all, leaving only a black void where fear could grow. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The silence was so deep it felt alive, pressing down on every chest. Then, from somewhere in that darkness, came a sound. A faint click. Then, another. Slow, steady, measured. Footsteps. Thomas turned toward the sound, but he could see nothing. Just the endless dark. Yet he felt it, the weight of something moving closer. The air grew heavy, thick with static. His skin prickled. A voice, cold, metallic, inhuman, spoke from the dark. But not in words anyone knew. It was a low, vibrating tone, filled with sharp edges and rising notes, like steel being dragged across stone. The ground shook again, as if the earth itself flinched. Suddenly, a flash of blue light cut through the dark, thin, sharp, and blinding. It scanned across the village like a blade, freezing everyone it touched in a ghostly glow. When it passed over Thomas, his body locked for a moment, every muscle tensing as if pinned by invisible chains. Then the light vanished, and he dropped to his knees, gasping. Someone screamed. Then the world came alive. The alien soldiers stepped forward, their armor glowing faintly, just enough to reveal their outlines. They were tall, silent, perfectly synchronized. No sound of metal. No sound of breathing. Only the click of their steps and the soft hum of their weapons, which pulsed with a strange inner light. Thomas rose to his feet. He could feel the fear rolling through the village, sharp as knives. But beneath it, anger. He turned to the people. "They're here to wipe us out," he said, his voice shaking but clear. "If we don't fight, we die. All of us." The villagers looked at one another. Some backed away, clutching their children. Others stood frozen. A few nodded slowly, fear still in their eyes but joined by something else, resolve. Then a new sound cut through the night. A low hum, not from above, but from the field where the first pod had landed. The ground began to glow. Strange patterns of light spread out in a perfect circle, burning symbols into the earth. Thomas knew what it meant. They were preparing to erase everything. He turned and shouted, "Move! Get inside! Now!" The villagers scattered, running into houses, barns, anywhere they could hide. But Thomas stayed where he was, staring at the approaching soldiers. One of them stopped. It tilted its head, almost like it was curious. Then it raised its weapon, a long, thin device that looked alive, its surface pulsing like veins of light. The hum grew louder. Thomas dove to the side just as a beam of pure white energy cut through the road, leaving a smoking scar in the ground. The air burned. The smell of ozone filled his lungs. He didn't wait. He grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a broken shovel, and swung it hard at the soldier's head as it stepped closer. The shovel shattered on contact. The alien didn't flinch. Thomas ran. The beam fired again, missing him by inches. It cut a fence in half like it was paper, sparks flying into the dark. Then, something unexpected. A blast of light came from the other side of the village, striking one of the alien soldiers square in the chest. The creature staggered, armor rippling like liquid. It didn't fall, but it stopped moving for a second. Thomas turned to see where it had come from. Old Man Harlan, the village mechanic, stood in the doorway of his workshop holding a strange weapon, a hunting rifle wired with glowing cables and a car battery strapped to its stock. "Get up, boy!" Harlan shouted. "These things can bleed. I just made one do it." Thomas didn't argue. He scrambled to his feet, grabbed a metal pipe from the ground, and ran toward Harlan's shop. Behind him, the aliens moved faster now, silent, deadly, relentless. Another beam fired, striking the workshop. The wall exploded in a shower of wood and sparks, knocking Harlan to the ground. His rifle skidded across the dirt toward Thomas. Thomas grabbed it. The cables buzzed in his hands, the weapon vibrating with unstable energy. The closest alien raised its weapon. Thomas fired first. A burst of blue light shot from the rifle, slamming into the alien's chest. This time, the armor cracked. Not much, but enough to make the creature stagger again. Thomas's eyes widened. "It works," he whispered. Then the hum from the field grew louder, so loud it shook the earth. The glowing patterns burned brighter, forming a ring of light around the entire village. And from the ship above came a deep, rising tone. Something was about to happen. Something that would leave nothing behind. The hum became deafening, shaking the ground like an earthquake. The ring of light in the field expanded, burning hotter, brighter, rising like a wall of fire that surrounded the village. Thomas tightened his grip on the strange rifle. Its energy core buzzed against his palm, almost as if it were alive. But he had no time to wonder about that. The alien soldiers closed in. One stepped forward, towering above Thomas, its armor now glowing brighter, lines of silver light racing across its body like veins. It raised its weapon. Thomas fired first. The rifle roared with blue energy, slamming into the creature's chest. Sparks flew, the alien stumbled, but did not fall. Instead, it tilted its head, as if curious why a human weapon could hurt it. Another alien raised its weapon. Thomas dove behind a broken cart just as a beam cut through where he had been standing, the ground sizzling and cracking. The air smelled of burning metal and scorched earth. Then, a loud metallic clang echoed from behind the alien line. Harlan, old, gray, and stubborn, had dragged himself back up, holding a second makeshift weapon. A length of steel pipe wired to a car battery and a power drill motor. Sparks danced along its surface. "Over here, you shiny bastards!" Harlan yelled, swinging it at the nearest alien. The weapon crackled as it struck the creature's leg. For the first time, an alien made a sound, not a word, but a sharp, distorted shriek, like feedback from a broken speaker. It stumbled, fell to one knee. The others turned. Thomas didn't think. He fired again, this time aiming for the alien's head. The blast of energy cracked through its armor, and the creature collapsed, its body twitching before going still. For one breathless second, silence. Then the remaining aliens moved as one. Faster than before. Too fast. Inside. Now. Thomas shouted, grabbing Harlan's arm and pulling him toward the workshop. Beams of light cut through the air, burning holes through walls, fences, even stone. They dove inside just as another blast tore through the doorway, missing them by inches. The workshop shook, tools falling from shelves, sparks flying from broken wires. Harlan groaned, clutching his side where a piece of wood had cut deep. But his eyes were still sharp. That rifle, it's alien tech. Been building it from parts I've found in the woods these last months. Thought I was crazy. Guess I wasn't. Thomas stared at him. You've seen them before? Harlan nodded grimly. Not them. But they're drones. Small machines. Watching. Figured they were scouting. I tried to warn folks. No one believed me. Before Thomas could answer, the hum outside grew louder still. The glowing ring expanded higher, now like a wall of white fire surrounding the entire village. And then, the ship spoke. Not in words. Not in any human language. But in a deep, resonant tone that shook the air, the ground, the bones of everyone who heard it. The message was clear, even if no one understood the words. Final phase begins. A beam of light shot down from the ship, striking the center of the ring. The ground rippled like water, and then rose. The earth itself began to lift, tearing from its roots, floating upward in jagged chunks. "They're disintegrating the ground," Harlan whispered, his face pale. "They'll erase everything. Buildings, people, the land itself. Like it was never here." Thomas looked at the rifle. Then at Harlan. Then at the villagers hiding in their homes. "No," he said, his voice low but steady. "Not tonight. Not without a fight." He stood, grabbing a belt of tools and wires from the wall. "Can you make more of these?" He nodded at the rifle. Harlan grimaced. "Not fast. But maybe I can juice it. Overload it. Enough to punch through their shields." Thomas checked the door. Shadows moved outside, 3, 4, maybe 5 aliens surrounding the shop. "You do that," Thomas said. "I'll buy you time." Harlan opened his mouth to protest, but stopped. Something in Thomas's eyes told him it was useless. Outside, the hum reached a violent pitch. The ground shook harder. Cracks spread across the road. Thomas stepped into the open, rifle in hand. The aliens saw him immediately. Their weapons rose as one. He fired. The blast struck the closest alien, knocking it back into another. Sparks erupted, a shriek cutting through the air. Then beams of white light tore toward him from 3 directions. Thomas Dove rolled, fired again, hitting another alien in the shoulder. Its armor shattered, spilling a faint glowing fluid that hissed as it hit the ground. Behind him, the workshop pulsed with blue light as Harlan worked furiously, wires sparking, tools clanging. But Thomas knew, there were too many. He couldn't hold them off forever. Then, a sound split the air. A high-pitched whistle. Growing louder. Closer. A streak of fire tore through the night sky, striking one of the aliens and exploding in a flash of white heat. The shockwave knocked the others back. Thomas turned, eyes wide. In the distance, on the edge of the hills, stood a figure. Tall. Broad. Holding something on its shoulder, something smoking, glowing. Not alien. Human. And not from the village. The figure on the hill lowered the smoking weapon from his shoulder. It looked like a rocket launcher, but not any kind the village had ever seen. Sleek, dark, and glowing faintly with strange energy. The alien soldiers turned toward him. Their glowing eyes flared brighter. They recognized a threat. Thomas stared, breathing hard, still gripping the alien rifle. Who is that?" he whispered. The figure didn't answer. Instead, he raised a hand and gestured forward, as if to say, "Fight with me." Then he ran. Not down the hill, not away, but toward the village, toward the alien line. His movements were sharp, precise, almost too fast for a normal human. The aliens fired beams of white energy, but the stranger slid low, rolled, and returned fire with a second shot from his launcher. Another alien exploded in a burst of light and smoke. Thomas didn't hesitate. He rose from cover and fired his rifle, catching another soldier in the side. Sparks flew, armor cracked. Harlan stumbled out of the workshop, holding a modified device, a glowing coil connected to a car battery and a cracked satellite dish. "Kid," he shouted, "this thing's got one shot. Make it count." Thomas grabbed it, slinging the alien rifle over his shoulder. The device hummed in his hands, heat vibrating through its frame. He didn't know how it worked, but he didn't have time to ask. The stranger reached the edge of the village. Close enough now for Thomas to see his face. He wore a helmet, sleek, black, and covered with glowing blue lines. But beneath it, his jaw was human. Scarred. Strong. Another alien raised its weapon. The stranger moved like lightning, pulling a blade from his back. Glowing, sharp, humming with energy, and sliced the weapon in half before driving the blade deep into the creature's chest. It collapsed, twitching, before going still. The hum from the ship grew louder, shaking the air, the earth, the sky. The glowing ring now formed a dome, sealing the village in. Thomas shouted to the stranger. Who are you? The man turned his helmet toward him. For a moment, silence. Then, a voice, calm, steady, with the weight of experience. Human. Like you. But not from here. Another alien fired. The stranger dodged, rolled, fired his launcher, hitting two at once. Their bodies collapsed, armor cracking. Thomas felt his stomach drop. Not from here. No time for questions. The ground trembled violently. The dome of light pulsed, and a deep tone echoed from the ship above. Final phase, the stranger said. They're seconds from erasing this place. Thomas looked at the glowing weapon Harlan had given him. This thing can stop it. Not by itself, the stranger replied, stepping closer. But together, maybe. How? The stranger pointed to the center of the dome, where the glowing circle burned brightest. Core node. That's their anchor. Hit it hard enough, the field collapses. But what? Thomas asked. The stranger hesitated. It will trigger a response. You'll bring more of them. A lot more. Thomas looked around, the burning ground, the trembling houses, the terrified villagers peeking from windows. He thought of the children, of the old farmer who had warned them all along, of the land itself about to be erased. He met the stranger's glowing visor. We'll deal with that later. Right now, we live. The stranger nodded once. Then follow me. They moved fast, dodging blasts, firing back, cutting down the last two soldiers standing between them and the glowing core. The hum was deafening now, the air shimmering like heat waves. The circle of light pulsed faster, brighter, seconds from release. Thomas raised the weapon. It shook in his hands, glowing violently, heat building like it might explode. Steady! The stranger called out, standing between him and the ship, firing his launcher at approaching reinforcements. Wait for the surge. The circle flared, once, twice, then a blinding flash. Now! Thomas pulled the trigger. The weapon fired a burst of raw energy, brighter than lightning, hotter than fire, striking the center of the glowing circle. The ground erupted, light exploding outward in a violent wave. The dome shattered. The hum died. The ship above flickered, its lights dimming. Then, silence. The villagers stepped out of their homes, blinking against the fading glow. For a moment, it seemed over. But then, an echoing roar came from the sky. Not the hum this time. A scream. The ship's lights flared again, red now, not white. The stranger turned toward Thomas. You just woke the hive. The sky burned red. The alien ship pulsed with violent light, its surface rippling as if alive. Then, from its underside, hundreds of smaller objects began to detach. Sleek, sharp, and fast. Reinforcements. The stranger turned to Thomas. They're sending everything now. How many? Thomas asked, voice shaking. Enough to erase not just this village, but miles around it. Thomas swallowed hard. Then we fight. The stranger looked at him, long, sharp, and nodded once. But not alone. From his belt, the stranger pulled a small black device and slammed it into the ground. A blue pulse shot upward, splitting the air with a high-pitched hum. A moment later, the clouds above shimmered, and another ship appeared. Smaller than the alien one, sleeker, built for speed rather than size. Its surface gleamed with dark metal and glowing blue veins. It wasn't alien. It was human. The villagers gasped, some stepping back in fear, others staring in wonder. The stranger tapped the side of his helmet. This is Ranger 3. Target confirmed. Engaging strike protocol. A voice crackled back, calm but urgent. Copy, Ranger 3. Reinforcements inbound. Hold position. Extraction in 5. Thomas stared at him. You're military. Not the kind you know, the stranger replied. Different branch. Off-world. Thomas blinked. Off what? The stranger didn't answer. He lifted his launcher and fired at the first wave of reinforcements streaking toward the ground. The sky lit with explosions, raining sparks over the fields. The villagers ducked. Thomas didn't. He ran back to the workshop, where Harlan was trying to stand, holding his side. "We're not done, old man," Thomas said, grabbing the alien rifle and the glowing device again. Harlan coughed, his face pale but determined. "Then we make it count." They stepped outside together. The stranger was moving like a shadow, firing, reloading, dodging blasts of white energy that split the earth with every strike. The smaller human ship above fired beams of blue light, shredding clusters of alien pods before they could land. But too many were getting through. 5, then 10, then 20 alien soldiers hit the ground, forming ranks, weapons glowing brighter than before. Their armor shimmered with fresh energy, as if learning from past hits. "Fall back," the stranger shouted. "We hold the line at the center." Thomas and Harlan ran to the core, where the shattered dome had left scorched earth and glowing fragments. Villagers gathered behind them, some holding farm tools, others old rifles, a few carrying torches. Their fear was still there, but so was something stronger. The stranger landed beside Thomas, helmet scratched, launcher empty. He dropped it and pulled his glowing blade instead. "You ready to fight for your world?" he asked. Thomas nodded. "You." The stranger's visor flashed. "I've been doing it for years." The first wave hit. Aliens fired beams of blinding light, carving through wood, stone, and soil. Villagers ducked behind broken carts, fences, and barrels, firing old rifles that barely scratched the enemy armor. Thomas fired the alien weapon again, striking one soldier in the chest. The armor cracked deeper this time, glowing fluid spraying across the ground. Harlan's device hummed louder, sparks flying. He aimed, gritted his teeth, and unleashed a blinding blast that tore through 2 aliens at once, before the weapon shattered in his hands, smoking and dead. "They're learning," the stranger said, slicing through another soldier with his blade. "Their armor's adapting." "Then we hit harder," Thomas replied. More alien pods crashed down, shaking the earth. Dozens of soldiers emerged, forming perfect lines, weapons pulsing with deadly light. The stranger tapped his helmet. "Command, we need extraction now." A voice crackled back. "Negative. Too hot. Clear a landing zone." Thomas fired again, this time hitting an alien's head. The creature collapsed, armor sparking violently. But another took its place instantly. The stranger moved faster, his blade carving arcs of blue light through the dark. But even he was slowing, his breathing ragged. Then, from the sky, came a new sound, a rising roar. 3 more ships broke through the clouds, smaller than the first human one, but sleek and glowing with blue engines. They dove toward the battlefield, firing streams of energy that tore through alien ranks, leaving smoldering craters in their wake. The villagers stared in shock. Some whispered. Some cried. Thomas didn't look away. He kept firing, each shot striking truer than the last. The stranger stood beside him, blade humming, visor glowing. And then he said something that froze Thomas to his core. "This is just a scouting force." Thomas turned, stunned. "Scouting? They weren't here to conquer," the stranger said, cutting another soldier down. "They were here to test you." "For what?" The stranger's visor flashed red. "To see if your species was worth sparing, or erasing." The ground shook violently as the larger alien ship began to charge again, light building along its edges. The stranger looked to the sky, then back at Thomas. "We've got one chance to show them your answer." The alien ship burned brighter, its massive frame pulsing with violent red light. The hum deepened into a growl, shaking the air and ground like a living thing ready to strike. The stranger's visor glowed with warning symbols. "They're charging their primary weapon," he said. "One shot will erase everything within 5 miles." Thomas gripped the alien rifle tighter. "Then we stop it. Now." "Not with that alone," the stranger replied. "We need something bigger." Above, The human strike ships fired again, tearing into alien ranks, but it wasn't enough. More pods fell, more soldiers rose, their armor glowing brighter as if fueled by rage. Harlan limped toward them, face pale, hands trembling. That ship of theirs, it's got a core. Right in the center. You hit that, the whole thing goes down. Thomas glanced up. And how exactly do we hit it? The stranger didn't hesitate. We board it. Thomas blinked. Board it? You mean, get inside? The stranger nodded once. Only way. Their shields are too strong from the outside. But a small strike team might slip through while their focus is on the village. Thomas stared at the massive ship, its shadow covering the land like a floating mountain. Small strike team. There's barely 3 of us who can fight. Not true, the stranger said, looking toward the villagers. I've seen the way they've held their ground. Fear hasn't broken them yet. That means they're ready. Before Thomas could respond, the ground cracked open, glowing with the same white energy as before. The alien soldiers advanced again, 20, 30, more, firing beams that cut through walls and fences like paper. The stranger turned to the human strike ships above. Cover fire. We're going up. One of the ships broke formation and descended, blue thrusters burning bright. A hatch opened along its side, a ramp lowering. Thomas looked at the villagers, ordinary people holding tools, rifles, even kitchen knives. Their faces were pale, but their eyes, hard, determined. We don't kneel, Thomas said, voice strong. Not tonight. The villagers nodded. Some shouted. Others simply gripped their makeshift weapons tighter. The stranger pointed toward the human ship. 3 of us go. Me, you, and 1 more. The rest hold the line. I'm coming, Harlan said, voice rough but steady. Thomas shook his head. You're injured. I built the damn weapon that broke their shield, Harlan snapped. I know how to overload their core. You need me. The stranger gave a sharp nod. Then let's move. They sprinted toward the descending ship, alien fire scorching the ground around them. The villagers shouted and fired, creating chaos to draw attention away. Beams of light ripped through the night. Explosions lit the sky. The ship's ramp slammed shut the moment they stepped inside. Thomas stumbled, gripping the wall as the ship roared upward, engines burning blue. Through the viewport, he saw the battlefield below. Villagers fighting side by side with human soldiers who had dropped in from the other strike ships. But then he saw something worse. The alien mothership's underside split open, revealing a massive weapon glowing like a small sun. They're almost ready, the stranger said. We'll have 1 shot. The ship tilted, engines straining, racing toward the mothership. Inside, Harlan opened a battered toolcase, pulling out wires, batteries, and strange glowing fragments scavenged from the battlefield. He worked fast, hands moving with surprising steadiness despite the shaking of the ship. Thomas watched. You really think this can blow their core? Harlan didn't look up. I don't think. I know. But it'll take all the power we've got, and someone to stay behind to trigger it. Thomas went silent. The meaning was clear. The stranger's visor turned toward him. Focus. 1 problem at a time. The ship jolted hard as it pierced the alien shield. Sparks sprayed along the hull, alarms blaring. But they were through. The alien mothership loomed close now, its surface a maze of pulsing lights and shifting panels. Docking point ahead, the stranger said. Get ready. The ship slammed against the alien hull, magnetic locks sealing them in place. The hatch opened with a hiss of steam. Cold air, metallic and sharp, spilled inside. Thomas felt his stomach twist. The alien ship was alive, not just metal, but something stranger, darker. The walls pulsed faintly, like veins under skin. The stranger drew his glowing blade. Stay close. Don't touch anything you don't have to. They stepped inside. The floor was smooth, black, and faintly warm. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, shifting like liquid script. Then a sound, low, guttural, mechanical, echoed through the corridor. "Something's coming," Thomas whispered. The stranger raised his blade. "Not something. Everything." From the shadows ahead, alien shapes began to emerge. Taller, stronger, faster than the ones they had fought below. The stranger tightened his grip. "These are the real soldiers." And then the ship trembled, once, twice, before a deep voice, sharp and cold, filled the corridor. "You should not have come here." The voice echoed through the corridor, metallic yet alive, carrying a weight that pressed into their bones. Thomas froze, rifle trembling in his grip. Harlan swallowed hard but didn't stop working on the device in his hands, connecting wires with fast, practiced motions. The stranger stepped forward, blade humming with pale blue light. "Show yourself." From the shadows, a massive figure emerged, taller than any soldier they had faced. Its armor was darker, thicker, lined with glowing red veins that pulsed like a heartbeat. Its face was smooth, without eyes, but a glowing slit stretched across where a mouth might be. It spoke again, words twisting like static. Yet Thomas understood them, not through language, but meaning. "You are not ready for the stars." Thomas gritted his teeth. "We weren't ready for you either. But we're still here." The alien tilted its head, almost curious. Then, with a smooth motion, it raised a weapon unlike any they had seen, a spear of shifting light that hummed with violent energy. The stranger whispered, "Core Guardian. Strongest thing on this ship." The alien lunged. The stranger met it head-on, blade striking against the spear in a flash of blue and red. Sparks erupted, the walls shuddered, the floor rippled like liquid under their feet. "Go!" the stranger shouted. "Find the core." Thomas and Harlan ran down the corridor, following the pulsing lights that grew brighter the deeper they went. Behind them, the clash of blade and spear echoed, metal ringing like a storm. The passage opened into a vast chamber. At its center hovered a glowing sphere, spinning slowly, lines of white energy wrapping around it like chains. "The core," Harlan whispered. "If I can overload it, the whole ship will go down." He dropped to his knees, opening his toolcase and pulling out the improvised detonator, a mess of wires, batteries, and alien fragments glowing with unstable energy. "How long?" Thomas asked, keeping his rifle ready. 2 minutes, Harlan said. "Maybe less." The walls began to pulse faster, the light deepening to a violent red. "They know we're here," Thomas muttered. Harlan didn't look up. "Then hold them off." The first alien soldier burst into the chamber, a towering figure with armor pulsing like liquid fire. Thomas fired, hitting its chest. The blast barely slowed it. He fired again, aiming for its head. Sparks flew, fluid sprayed, and the creature collapsed, but more came. 2, 4, 6. Thomas gritted his teeth, firing until the rifle overheated and hissed in his hands. He grabbed a broken pipe from the floor, swinging it hard at the nearest alien, knocking it back just long enough to grab the rifle again. Behind him, Harlan worked faster, sweat dripping, fingers trembling as he twisted wires into place. The chamber shook violently. Somewhere above, the alien ship's weapon was reaching full charge. Thomas risked a glance toward the corridor. The stranger still fought the core guardian, blade and spear clashing in flashes of blinding light. But he was slowing. The guardian struck, sending him crashing into a wall hard enough to dent the metal. Still, he rose. Blood ran down his arm, but his blade burned brighter. "Now, Harlan," he roared. "Almost." The aliens closed in. Thomas fired the last burst from the rifle, taking down one. Another lunged, swinging a blade of its own, but Thomas blocked with a pipe, sparks flying as metal met metal. Then, Harlan slammed his hand on the detonator. The core flared, white light spilling across the chamber, so bright it burned Thomas's eyes. The aliens froze, their armor flickering. The walls shook, beams of light cracking through them. The stranger shoved the guardian back with a final, desperate strike and sprinted into the chamber. "Time to leave," he shouted. But Harlan stayed on his knees, hands gripping the detonator. Go. Thomas turned. What are you doing? It has to be triggered manually, Harlan said. Go now, or it won't hold. No. Go, boy. Harlan shouted. Live. Tell them we fought. Thomas hesitated, just for a second. Then the stranger grabbed him, pulling him toward the exit. The last thing Thomas saw was Harlan's face, calm, steady, proud, as the light swallowed him. They ran. The corridor shook apart, panels ripping from the walls, sparks raining like fire. The ship's hull split open as they leapt onto the human strike vessel, which detached and shot downward, engines blazing. The alien mothership erupted behind them. First a flash, then a shockwave of blinding light that tore it apart in a silent explosion. Below, the village stood, damaged, scarred, but still there. The human strike ships circled overhead, scanning for survivors. The stranger removed his helmet, revealing a scarred but human face. He looked at Thomas, eyes sharp but tired. You showed them, he said. You showed them humanity won't kneel. Thomas stared at the wreckage, then at the village below. But this isn't over, is it? The stranger shook his head. No. This was only the first test. They know your world can fight now. Which means next time. He looked at the stars, where faint glimmers of light, other ships, other threats, shone in the darkness. They'll bring a war.